Skiddle-do, I said, Bill Bop. Skiddle-do, I said, Bill. Skiddle-do, I said, skid out and bop. Skiddle-do.
Perfect. So welcome guys on the Mastermind Leaders in Transformation, and today we really have an amazing opportunity to have this wonderful, experienced and very grounded, mature man, John Scherer. I'm very happy that
Thank you. Thank you for saying mature. I like that. I can live with mature. Yeah.
I've been using that word, recently for a while, specifically describing the man I want to talk and learn from them and get inspiration. So that just comes from me. You know me for a while already. So I'm really, really happy to have you, because as we discussed, those meetings on Thursday has been my response to the whole situation with the pandemic and the way how we could support each other and cope, specifically holding leadership positions in different places that we basically work. And the important thing is that no matter what industry we represent, no matter what position in the structure we represent, we are leaders in many different dimensions. So it's been really an interesting journey together to have those inspirations, have some ideas, good practices, small rituals, how to support each other, and also how to take care about ourselves. Because for leaders, that's the key issue, not to forget about ourselves. So I'm really happy that we are doing it until now. And for the last weeks, we've been discussing leadership from many different angles. And we started with discussion with women in leadership, men in leadership, younger generations in leadership, the future of leadership, and all those things related to, what is our to do in this context that we are right now. And from all the discussions that we had so far, I thought, maybe I raised the wrong question. Maybe there should be a question around the future of leadership. And I was thinking who to ask and who to invite to join that conversation, to join those reflections that I've been actually having for last years, as we also started Leadership Festival, and we founded that over 3 years ago. And Janek, as I see, Janek Scherer was one of the speakers at the first edition of Leadership Festival. And I remember, I'm not sure, John, if you remember Tom Tomison, he was giving a keynote speech at the day first. And he said something really amazing, that in few years, thinking about owning a company would sound so ridiculously like owning a man right now. So I thought, if asking about the future of leadership, I really want to have you. So really happy that you are available. Guys, we have the structure as most of you know it. So first we just ask each other, how are you doing and in what condition is your team? So I ask you kindly to place your answers in the chat. Place them in English, please, because today it's going to be
Przepraszam bardzo.
Very useful for us and for John. And John, how are you doing? And what in what condition
jestem nieźle. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm really doing great. Very excited to be doing this with you, Sylvia. This is so great. I've enjoyed the preparation for it. If this didn't even happen, I would be thrilled for what I've discovered in my thinking about what I wanted to say and do with you guys. So I'm really, really great, doing well. And my little team, I have these associates in 12 countries, a small group of 25 people, and they're all alphas. They're all probably like you all. So there's no way to tell you don't tell these people what to do. There's only the ability to influence them, and they do things because they think it's the right thing to do. So I have to practice what I'm telling you all the time.
With other mature people, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They make up their own minds about things. Yeah.
We have this this ritual, I can say, to ask and check in, how are you doing and what is the condition of the team? Because we also notice from week to week what is changing, you know, and what are different important issues to be taken care of. So Pavel is saying, me and my family empowered by short, unexpected vacation. My team is doing good, looking forward to implement new ideas, improving sales, so feel very motivated. Great to hear you, Pavel. And you see, he is my man. He is always saying about family, because when we ask about the team, we also expand the word team, not only to the business context, but also to all the teams that we have. And family recently is one of the most important part of the teams that we are part of. So different circles of circles that are here. Magdalena is writing, hello, tomorrow I have a meeting with representation of my whole team because they are afraid of the future of our institute. I'm in fear and they are. It's also very important to, you know, to feel okay, to sense that feeling, that emotion that seems not to be pleasant, right? But facing it gives you the opportunity always to do something and take care of yourself first, so you can hold that space for the team in a proper manner. So the questions will appear in the chat and the replies. If you would at any point feel like you want to comment anything that John is saying or we are saying, or you want to ask John a question, use the chat for it. And you know that at the end we are unmuting ourselves and taking together one breath as a closure for this meeting. So we're going to do it at the end. Sofia is saying, we are in the midst, do a very exciting project, family well-rounded, super happy, especially Hela. She's a year-old lady, enjoying nature and running with chickens. Grateful to be in the nature, appreciating the freedom and beauty. Hallelujah. Okay, guys, so I invited John because John has a very unique experience, coming from actually very different contexts, being in Navy, in Army, understanding what it means also to command and not to lead only in terms of the new leadership and new forms. But you've been also a therapist in the systemic family therapy, running a lot of transformations in the huge corporations, but also on the very individual levels for leaders. You are an author of a book, but you are also an amazing human being, taking care of yourself with yoga exercises. I remember once we met in Gdynia, I had my leg broken, and with your sense of humor, we just met at the coffee break in different rooms where, you know, running trainings, and he said, break your second leg. And I felt, yeah, that's exactly John. So, you know, the mixture that you bring seems to be the perfect to really answer those three questions that I've been sitting on for the last few weeks. So I'm placing those questions in chat. And for you guys, really, I encourage you to place also your replies to them. And I'm going to say them now loudly and start and give a space to you, Janek. So the first question that we wanted to find answers is what it means leadership today, you know, and no matter what kind of industry we represent, occupation or culture, we live in a world, and this is very interesting discovery for me, that we live in a world of influencers. And where are the leaders? Because there are a lot of people who try to become celebrities or make their influence in the world, but what are the leaders and where are the leaders? And with this question about the leadership that we know it, is it over? Is it, you know, the end of that era? And because of, we notice also in the political systems, and I think you live in Warsaw right now, and you know how difficult the situation is after the second round of the elections. And of course, you know, we might find rational answers to everything that is happening, but the current state is that we are very diversely divided in Poland. And I think this is also something that we need to really take into consideration, talking about the future of leadership. Exactly. It's like a magnet where actually, you know, those two forces that don't really want to talk and are not really interested. And that's becoming a space for more authoritarian ways of leading, as we observe in the politics, especially here in the eastern part. So I was also wondering, what are your thoughts about that, also coming from army? And I asked myself, maybe it's not that leadership style for now. Maybe I should change my own perspective. I don't know. So it would be very interesting to hear from you, John, on that. And also what to avoid, you know, in the current context, in the current situation. So I'm giving the space to you, John, and let's co-create it again together.
Thank you, Sylvia. Can I share the screen? Do I have that capability? Okay. Some people like to know, well, who are you and why are you in Poland? Would it be okay if I say a little bit about that, you think? Is that appropriate?
Oczywiście, Janek.
Oczywiście, okay. Por supuesto. So in 2007, I gave a talk on work in the human spirit, which was my last book. In California, 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. A woman said, my name is Dorota Ostoja-Zawadzka. I have a training company in Krakow, Poland called Pathways Polska. I was in the audience for your talk. I was very moved. We're doing a workshop, a conference for Orland. And would you come and do this talk? And I thought, man, a chance to go to a former communist country, which I'd never been to before, and talk to a bunch of oil executives about work and the human spirit. I thought, geez, I'll do that for free. So I came over, gave the talk, didn't do it for free. And people were very moved, emotionally moved. The thought that you could bring yourself to work, you know, is such a strange concept for so many people. And so she said, I want to come and do your 3.5-day leadership program that we do called the LDI Leadership Level 10. So she came to Seattle and did my program and said, Yannick, nobody's doing anything like this in Central and Eastern Europe. If I call you, will you come and do this leadership program for some of our clients? And I said, oczywiście. And so a month later, Siemens Corporation, and then fly back to Seattle, and then come back to Warszawa, DHL. And after 6 months, Netia, Bezed Vubica. And after 6 months of going back and forth, she said, Yannick, why don't you just move to Poland? And she was kind of joking, but I thought, dlaczego nie? I thought, I'll come for 6 months. Well, that was in August of 2008. 2 months later, the entire economy in America just completely collapsed. Nobody was hiring leadership consultants in America. I had colleagues that were devastated financially, couldn't sell their homes or anything. So I said, well, I'll stay for a little longer until things turn around in America. Well, that was 12 years ago. So I lived in Krakow for 8-9 years, and I moved up to Warszawa because of the air quality in Krakow was not good in my lungs. You know, I'm going to be 80. So mam prawie 80 teraz. And so my doctor said, you got to get out of there. So I said, okay. So I moved to Warszawa, which is where all the clients are anyway. So that's how I got here. And I'm going to be here as long as I'm needed. And thank you, Sylvia, for the indication that I might still be needed here. So let's go with this. And
I think it will not be just my opinion.
Well, okay, but let's get started. And what I'd like to do is, there are going to be several places in here where I have thought about stopping to have a conversation. So let's just go and see what happens. That be okay? All right. I'll take that as a yes.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to step back and I'm going to look at leadership from a meta point of view, and then come back and see if it addresses your 3 questions, because I didn't know how to speak to each of the 3 in order. Very key concept here for me, that leadership is not a position or a title. Just because your name is in a box at the top of a piece of paper or somewhere on that piece of paper does not mean that you're exercising leadership. It just means you've got a position and a title. It means your name is in a box. What happens around that box is has nothing to do with the title. We'll get to that. We're going to get to that in a second. Leadership is an attitude, not a position. It's an attitude that manifests, that shows up in certain behaviors in your interactions with other people. Leadership is something that happens. It's something that you do. It's a place that you come from, meaning coming from, you have that concept. It's an attitude. It's a place that you come from, and it's something that you do or don't do. It's very important. So for the rest of my talk, I'm not talking about a title or position. I'm talking about stuff you do with people. It's something you do with people. Leadership then either happens in that moment or doesn't happen in that moment, okay? Second thing, two very simple truths. The higher up you go, and this was a new discovery for me in preparation for this. The higher up you go, the harder it is to exercise what I'm talking about for leadership attitudes and create those interactions. People at the bottom do it all the time. The people in the front line have these teams. When a problem exists, quite often, they'll call a few people in, have a conversation, and work it out, and then they solve the problem. But the higher you go, the more people think they have to do it all by themselves. That they might listen to people, but then they have to come up and then tell everybody what to do. So this was a real discovery for me in preparation for this, that people who need to exercise what I'm talking about need to look to their teams. If you want to know what leadership looks like, go down. Don't come to some guy like me who's a leadership expert. Just look at what your people are doing and see what you can learn from them. You'd be surprised. Now, here's the key to this model. Everything that follows. This is from a good dear friend of mine from Harvard, Hugh O'Doherty. Hugh and I are both on the faculty for the Leadership Academy for Poland, Cezary Wojcik's program. And this originated with Ron Heifetz on the faculty at Harvard. And this is my adaptation of that model. It's very, very important for everything going forward. What kind of challenge are you facing? What's the problem? What's the solution? And what's needed from you in that moment? And there's two very different kinds of situations. One is a technical problem. Like the problem itself is very clear. It's understood. The solution is available. You know what the solution is. So what you need is somebody with authority. You need command authority. I just watched this movie, Greyhound, with Tom Hanks, because I spent 4 years on a destroyer just like that. That was the same kind of destroyer I was on, literally the same kind of ship. And I was in tears half the time because I felt like, I could feel the rolling of the ship and the screaming and the yelling. And I was a combat officer in that situation. It was just really quite amazing. And when he says, right full rudder, all ahead's 2/3, whatever that is, that's command. You don't have a conversation about it. You don't have a meeting. The problem is clear. He comes up with a solution and he says, do it. Okay, that's a certain kind of getting people to do stuff. But there's a whole different kind of situation, which COVID-19 has put in our face unavoidably. This is not a technical problem. This is a wicked challenge. This is a challenge with multiple causality. There's many causes. There's going to be lots of stakeholders involved. Nobody can just say, now do this and the problem is solved. We're going to have to do this together. Well, that means something else. So wicked challenge. The problem isn't clear. We know what this little invisible thing is, but okay, but what do we do about it? That's not clear. What's needed is learning, collaboration. So what's needed here is what's called adaptive leadership, facilitating learning, decision-making, multiple stakeholders. Now, here's where the confusion occurs. This is management, this is leadership. When I'm called in to work with organizations to do leadership development, what I quite often run into is an organization that's being well managed and very poorly led. There's a lot of management and not much leadership. There's a lot of people feeling like they need to tell people what to do. And of course, not doing very well. Otherwise, they wouldn't be calling me in. If everything's going great, you don't need to call John. But they call me in because stuff isn't working. And the reason it's not working is they're not exercising leadership. They're exercising management. They're using command authority. And then one more thing, and then I want to pause for a conversation here. So if you want to start developing your adaptive leadership capabilities, These are the 4 things you need to start doing, and I'll leave them up on the screen. We can have a conversation. You need to be willing to adapt your paradigms, your point of view. You need to let go of something you're attached to. It's very Zen. It's very Zen. You need to let go of something, I promise you. You need to facilitate system thinking. Quite often when a problem manifests itself, like this virus, you think the virus is in one. No, the causes are they're everywhere. The causes are everywhere. You can't solve this by going like this. You have to step back and look at the whole system. If you have a problem with sales, why do you blame sales? That's the brown end of the pipe. That's, the cause is way upstream somewhere. So if you're going to be exercising leadership, you need to step back from the problem and begin to look at what's going. So when I'm called in by a department that's having a problem, I want to talk about the white spaces around that department. What's happening to the inputs? What about the outputs? What's happening around that system? And number 3, you need to learn to mobilize how do you work with multiple stakeholders? You need to mobilize them, get them in the room at the same time, and then galvanize decision-making. So I'd like to pause here for just a minute and see what your thoughts are about what I've said about these 2 kinds of situations, about leadership is more like a way of being than it is a title or a position.
I encourage you again to use chat for that.
Or would it be okay if they raise their hand? Can they raise their hand?
Yeah, we can also do it.
Let me see if I can figure out how to get all of you on the. Sorry, got to go back. How do I go back? Let me go back. I don't have my clicker here, so I'm trying to go back. That's the next slide. I don't want to do that. I want to go back. There we go.
To anybody who just wants to jump in, let's do it this way, that you just unmute yourself and share.
Great.
The thoughts.
Yeah, and if you can say who you are, then I can slide across my screen and see who you are. Or I can keep going. I don't need to stop, but I just want to give you a chance if you want to jump in and say something to do it.
One comment that comes to my mind is that we've been already discussing the differences between management and leadership for so many years, and it's still existing, And I think what's really, what I got from what you said at the very beginning is that that leadership sometimes is about not doing.
Yeah, sometimes leadership is asking questions rather than telling people what to do.
Exactly. So
sometimes leadership is just getting the right people in the room and sitting there and being quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep going and
one thing that
please.
That hit me, and this is something that I've been also underlying, that you said that the people who are on the top, they tend to think that they need to make their own decisions, that they need to know themselves. And I keep saying recently that you don't have to know yourself, you can know together.
Yeah.
But I think, again, that's why I was talking to mature, older men usually, because let's be honest, these are the people who are holding C-level positions. And I think this is really important that, if we talk about management and leadership, it means also a huge shift in their way they perceive their role. And they are just more managers, like to command is what you said, not to lead, and to learn how to lead and how to be a great leader in the C-level position. Being a man, it's a huge shift to not being, evaluated or assessed because I might not know, I might know together.
This is very ironic to me. People get promoted because they are effective and they're successful and they don't make a lot of mistakes, which means that they've given commands to people that turned out to be right. Okay, and so they get promoted. So there's this Darwinian, very masculine, very yang very, male, kind of archetypal male type of behavior that gets people promoted. So ironically, you get promoted for behavior that is less and less effective.
Exactly.
And I look at this, and I know it's not fair to do generalizations like this, but after 40, 50 years in this, doing this work, women tend to me to be more yin, more engaging, they're more likely to be able to work with multiple stakeholders. Ironically, they're more likely to be exercising leadership. And if you look at this, it is another reason why they don't get promoted, because the paradigm is a command and control paradigm. And so women that get promoted have to fit into that paradigm. I can't tell you, when I was a freshman in college, this is 1958, I'm dating myself. My mom was a magazine editor. My pop was a newspaperman. And I wrote a paper for a freshman philosophy class called Women in Gray Flannel Suits. And it was a concept that women were going into 1958. They were coming back from the war. They went into the workplace. And I was writing a paper trying to come to grips with the fact that my mom worked all the time. At that time, I need to go find that paper and go read it again. And what happens to people who are naturally good at leadership is they have to fit into this management, this command and control paradigm in order to get promoted. And I sent you that link, Sylvia. Maybe you can get it out to the people here.
Absolutely.
The countries that are failing at dealing with the COVID-19 virus, and you see the picture of the heads of those countries, and then you look at the countries that are succeeding, and the countries that are failing are all headed up by men, and the ones that are working are all headed up by women. And it's like, it's so clear to me looking at this slide and that reality and what I've experienced over the years, that women are much more likely to naturally understand what I'm talking about. And then they say, but John, I can't do that in my company. The people that get listened to are the people who do command and control. So I think COVID is going to be a wake-up call. I'm going to, well, let me just do it right now.
Justina shared some
please.
comments.
Yeah, please.
Note together, I will definitely reuse it. The higher you go to the harder it gets to be a true leader.
Exactly.
It is spot on. I see so many people in high positions detached from what is really going on in the organization.
Yep.
Sophia added, hence women start their business to lead how they want.
So when a crisis comes and you're at the top and you feel this feeling like I have to solve the problem, you immediately, your default is command authority. Do this, right full rudder, all ahead flank, when that's may or may not be what's needed. Here's why I think this COVID-19 is such a fabulous, it's terrible, but if you look at it, in the change business, which I've been in for all these years, that was what I came to Poland to do, was introduce my approach to organizational change. In fact, the man who created this field, his name is Kurt Lewin. He was born in Mogilno, Poland. He's Polish. And he emigrated to Germany. And then when Hitler came, he and his family emigrated to America, thank God. And he's the grandfather of this field, which is now called planned change. It was called applied behavioral science. It's been my field for 40 years. And so I'm bringing Kurt back to Poland, which is kind of a cool thing. And one of his principles was that in order for change to happen, there has to be some kind of what he called an unfreezing, a melting of the current situation. Yeah. It breaks apart and goes into solution. Then things can move, and then you refreeze it again. So in a way, this virus all the cards are thrown up in the air. Everything is loose. What's going to come down? Well, now we have an opportunity. As these cards are coming back down, we now have an opportunity to influence how they come down, what they look like, what kind of teams do we have, where are we located, can people work from home, what are our meetings, what are our values, everything is up for grabs. Policies, procedures, strategy, everything, sales processes, the whole enterprise is up in the air right now. So in a way, what's needed is not command and control, because if you do that, you're just going to go back to the way things were. And does anybody really want to go back to the way things were? Not me. All right. So
and I think what has to be said at that point, John, as you mentioned, not to generalize too much, what I also observe with my team, what we are doing, is that men are awakening that feminine power within them, and women are awakening the male power within them.
Yeah.
So
there's some integration.
It's also about this awakening that we see in leadership. Is not only how we look like and which body do I wear, but it's also really related to what kind of qualities I want to use in my leadership. It's a perfect metaphor with those cards, like
Great.
what do I pick up, from what is appearing to me?
Doesn't matter what God you worship or don't, what kind of gender you live with, well, whether you're a vegetarian or a meat eater, doesn't matter if you're a right wing or left wing. The world needs leadership right now. The world needs what I'm talking about right now. So men can do it, women can do it, young people can do it, old people can do it, right wing, left wing. Everybody should be practicing this. And if we did, we might create a world that works for more people. So here's my point. Even though it's hard, you can do it, but it takes three things. Differentiation, we're going to look at each of these. Courage and authenticity, okay? The first one is differentiation. This is a very, very important concept. And that is, what's the source of these three, of these questions? Who you are, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're wanting, where you're going, and what you believe, and what you do next. Where is that coming from? For people that are undifferentiated, they're in what we call a fusion state, where, if let's say you live with somebody and you're in a fusion state. It means that, like, if you see a parent, I haven't been to the grocery store, haven't been a long time, but let's say you're in the grocery store and you see a parent with the child. And if the child is upset in some way, the parent gets upset. Like there's no boundary, there's no separation. So when you're in that fusion state, if somebody that you care about is upset with you, you get scared. You lose your sense of self. And that's when you're undifferentiated. But when you get up about half differentiated, that's pretty good work. It means half the time you get hooked by a situation or circumstances, you can get unhooked. 75% is just about as good as it gets without a lot of really, really good hard work. And to be fully differentiated means you're present to yourself, to others, to life. You're engaged without being taken over by the circumstances. You rarely get hooked to the point where you lose track of yourself and you ring true. This is differentiation. And the best leaders know how to be I was in the military. Like I said, I was combat officer on a ship on a destroyer for 4 years. When the what is happening all around you, you have to be able to return to the eye of the hurricane, that center where everything around you, there's people yelling and screaming and all kinds of bad things are happening. I had to be able to go into that place where I could look around, sense what needed to be done, work with my team, make decisions, and get stuff done. That's differentiation. You have to be able to be experiencing what's happening, but not being controlled. You have to experience the circumstances without being controlled by the circumstances. So this virus is giving us a chance to practice this every day. What can we do in response?
Specifically, Magda, for you for tomorrow's meeting, as you said, yeah? I think that's very crucial point for you.
You guys are welcome to take all of this. This is open source here. All right, so that's differentiation. Second, courage, and this is the metaphor that I like to call facing the tiger. If you're in the jungle and a tiger were to come up on you suddenly, what would be the human instinct? What would be the first thing a human would think about doing? Of course, is I'm gonna run. I'm leaving the scene as fast as possible. Now, the people who live in this part of the world have learned through very painful experience. If you turn your back and start to run away from the tiger cannot stop itself. It is hardwired. It is programmed to chase you and knock you down and then kill you and either eat you now or later. It cannot control itself. If you have a kitten, a little cat, and you take a string and you pull it 10 times in front of that cat, how many times out of 10 will the cat go? It'll 10 times out. It'll do it all day long. Okay. So tigers are hardwired. Are you kidding? That small, slow figure trying to run away. The yummy one with the crunchy center, as my partner used to say. And so the tiger will kill you. But the people say, if you turn and face the tiger, now he may still eat you. This is not a magic story here. He may eat you, okay? But he'll stop and think about it, or she will stop and think about it. And that is that's an extremely significant thing. In the simple act of facing the tiger, we have created not a guarantee, but a chance of a different outcome, a possibility. So facing the tiger creates possibility. That's all it does. Now, just in case you think you're getting away with something, like if I say, what are the tigers in your life right now? Difficult people, decisions, situations, you know immediately what they are. And if you're not facing them, I want to give you this little piece of advice. Don't think you're getting away with something. Because if you're not facing a tiger, it's already eating you. It's already biting you on your pupcha. I can tell you right now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be calling it a tiger. The fact that you're calling it a tiger means it's already threatening you or chewing on you in some way. So you might as well face it. That's what we tell our executive clients, most of which are men, because their sea level is over half men, is you got to turn and face your tigers. You can't turn your back and try to get away. So this is every situation that requires leadership requires courage, because leadership is helping something happen that wouldn't happen anyway, that might not happen by itself. So right away, leadership is an act of creation. It's putting it's manifesting, creating a possibility that wasn't there before, and getting people to see that possibility, gathering the right stakeholders around to help create that reality. That's an act of courage. It doesn't take as much, I know I'm going to get in trouble here, but it doesn't take the same kind of courage to be a manager. Now, or to exercise command authority. When I was officer of the deck and we were in battle stations and I had to make a decision and I had to say, fire at bogey Charlie Foxtrot 250, that was instinctive. If I had to stop and think about it, I was in trouble. We were dead. I had to make a decision. There it is. Go do it. But that doesn't take a lot of courage. Leadership, man, that takes a lot of courage. All right. So we got differentiation, courage, and the third one is, go.
Because I think, John, it's really important right now, because I know that it's, I don't want to say it's easy to say, it's hard to make, but in a way it is that, if we are used to being evaluated all the time, and right now being in this courageous position and facing the tiger, it also means that we are stepping into the unknown. And as you mentioned, if you face the tiger, still he might or she might eat you. Yeah,
exactly.
So I'm wondering if you have any kind of recommendation, or through your years of experience working with different people, and also you as a human being, what kind of advice could you give how to go even if you are afraid? Because that's basically the courage, that you are afraid but you are still doing it, right?
I guarantee you're going to be afraid. I mean, thousands of times I was terrified, but I couldn't let my fear paralyze me. I couldn't navigate off my fear. You understand what I'm saying? I couldn't use my fear as a factor to take into consideration. That was like, okay, I'm afraid. Now what am I going to do? I still have to do something, right? So in a combat situation, that's a different thing. You don't even really, after a while, you're just afraid all the time, basically. And so it's you just kind of say, oh, okay, what are we going to do today while I'm terrified? But in a normal kind of situation, when fear comes, it's usually different. When you have the spike of fear, and then that's when courage is, come on, you put your arm around your fear, excuse me, and you say, let's go. Let's go do this thing. And you kind of have to make friends with your fear. And after a while, your fear will, okay, I understand. We did okay the last time. Maybe I don't have to yell and scream so much in your ear about what you should do. That's the only thing I can say. Learn to gradually desensitize yourself. But the technique is mindfulness. You have to develop literally techniques to, I used to use my brain, even before I even knew what mindfulness was, back in the 1960s in the military. I had to learn how to breathe to calm everything down and stuff like that. So, sorry. Let me get a drink of my grapefruit juice here.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Eva is sharing her comment that, thank you for that comment, that's how I understand courage. Despite my fear, I act and do not give up.
You got it. You got it. All right. Next, authenticity. I love this. Because my pop was a newspaper man, my mom was a magazine editor. I love words. I love where the words came from because I think it can be so helpful. So authentic comes from the Greek word authentikos. Two words, auto, which means self, automobile, automatic, and thentikos in the Greek, which means the place of origin. Like, where were you born? Where did you come from, basically? So autothentikos means originating from the self. So it's like, it's like the author. That's where we get the word author. It comes from the same root. An author is authoring something. An author is bringing something to life that comes from inside. They're not copying something from outside. They're authoring, like the book edition of my book called Facing the Tiger. It'll be out hopefully in August or September. And it's coming from inside. I'm not copying stuff from outside. Who's authoring what is happening now? What is the source of what is happening? So authenticity means you are the source, at least co-creating what is happening. You're not a victim. You're authentikos. You're coming from a place of sourcefulness, we would say. So where does it come from? This is why people let you influence them, all right? You can have rank. Like in the military, I had 2 of these. If somebody only had 1, they did what I said. If the captain told me to do something, aye, sir. It's very clear in the military. You could even look at a person's uniform and tell how much rank they have. You literally wear your rank, In the civilian world, people have position power. You know where they are. You know where they are on that org chart, right? That's position power. There's coercive power. Somebody can have the power to hurt your career, make it difficult for you to get promoted. There's all kinds of different kinds of coercive power that people have. And then there's reward power, which is the reverse part of coercive power. They can help you. So you have a mentor, you have a sponsor, you have a champion inside the company or organization. You just hope that they don't, that they survive. Because if they go down, then you're in trouble. These are 3 sources of power, and these can get you compliance. This is where command authority comes from. Somebody has rank, they tell you what to do. But if you want commitment, you're gonna have to do something else. This is like connection power. Who do you know? I always make friends in a change project with the secretary to the boss. He or she may be way down low in the hierarchy, but they're next to this. They know where all the skeletons are. Do you have that expression? You have the expression for Polsku?
Yeah.
We know where all the bodies are buried. We know where the skeletons are. They know everything. They're connected to everything I want to know. Information power. What do you know? People will let you influence them because of who you know and what you know. What can you, people love to hear me tell stories and give advice and stuff like that. That gives me a source of power far greater than any other rank that I might have. And then expertise power. What can you do? So if I need open heart surgery, I don't want to go to an academic expert on heart surgery. I want to go to a surgeon who's doing surgery every day, who knows how to do it. So these are sources, and then the last one is personal power. And these 4 are more likely to result in commitment. This is adaptive leadership. So if you want to have authority, you can use those top 3. If you want to exercise leadership, you need to tap into these 4. And the truth is, If you're a woman and you don't have hierarchical power, you always have these four. There's who you know, what you can do, and who you are as a human being. We started one of our leadership programs a while ago, and we would go around the circle. You know, people were saying why they were there and so on. And I can say this woman's name because she tells the story. And we got to this woman. She said, "Hello, my name is Shauna, and I'm just a secretary." And I went, eh. And she said, "What?" And I said, "Can you start that again?" She said, "Yeah. Hello, my name is Shauna, and I'm just a secretary." And everybody else, it's like half men, half women. They're all, most of them all executives. And the whole room went, eh, like that. She said, "What? I'm just a secretary." And I said, "Shauna, by the end of this, of the LDI, she goes back to her company, big, huge energy company on the West Coast. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the CEO who says, "John, I understand that you do change. We need a big culture change here. Can you come and talk?" So, and I said, "Well, how did you get my name?" She said, "Well, Shauna is my secretary." So so we did the 6-month change project. And at one point I'm sitting in this meeting talking to the CEO, and he says, "Geez, John, I'm really sorry. I got to go. Shauna's called a meeting." And I said, "Let me understand something. Aren't you the CEO of this, 10,000 person organization?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, isn't Shauna just your secretary?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, why are you going to go to this meeting?" He said, "John, I would not miss any meeting that Shauna calls." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Every meeting she calls, something really good happens for the company and for me. I wouldn't miss it for anything." That's power that does not come from rank. It comes from another source. It's more like the bottom of this chart here. All right, can we go forward? All right, I love this T-shirt. I saw it at Disneyland or somewhere. This guy walked up, and a man, on the front of the shirt, it said, "Might as well be yourself." On the back, it said, "Everyone else is taken." I love that. You might as well be yourself here. Nobody in the history of the world ever has had your fingerprint. I just think that's amazing. No one in the future of the world will ever have your fingerprint. So what that means is, and even identical twins, when they walk in a room, they do not walk into the same room. You understand what I'm saying? They had the same childhood, they had the same food, they had the same parenting, they had the same everything. And yet when they walk into a room, what they see, what they notice, how they process reality, the meaning that they make, the connections that they make or don't make, their entire internal experience is completely unique. Now, there are other things similar, but they process reality completely. So there's no one will ever be on this earth with your capabilities and capacities, your gifts, your hangups, whatever it is. So what are you doing with that? See, what are you doing with your uniqueness? I want to give you a quick story here. We like to take business people to the bush to work with the Maasai people. They're amazing people. They're tall. They jump and they wear the shukas and so on. And one day I traded this warrior here, Kabole, my wristwatch, my binoculars, and some stuff for the spear and the shield. And the next day I went to my friend Kakuta, one of the Maasai warriors, and I said, "Kakuta, I'm having trouble." He said, "Brother, what is it?" I said, "No." I said, "I just can't tell what time it is." Because I gave Kabole my watch. He said, "Well, here, take this." And I said, "What's this?" He said, "This is a Maasai wristwatch." Now, I'm an Eagle Scout, right? You see that circle there. So I figure you put a toothpick on it and do something with the sun. I said, "Well, how does it work?" And he pointed to it. He said, "Look, it's time for us to be doing exactly what's happening right now." Bang.
I should get one of those watches, I guess. That would explain a lot to my husband.
There's two kinds of time. There's clock time, which is, okay, it's 10 minutes to 11. John, where are you supposed to be now in this presentation, the conversation? That's clock time. And then there's, what is it time for right now with this person, with this group? If you're a parent or if you're in a friendship or a partnership with somebody, there's two kinds of time. It's 5:30, 6 o'clock. What is it time for now? Or what is it time for now with my partner? What is it time for now with my kids? What is it time for now with my team? Yeah, we've got a project to complete. That's clock time. You got to understand that. You can't not have clock time. You've got to be managing clock time. But then leadership is, what does this team need from me right now? What does this moment need from me right now? Now you're talking about leadership. So you need to honor the past, acknowledge the present, co-create the future. That's what this virus is helping us do. You need to flex into innovative organizational structures and governance. That's what's going to be very hard for these C-level people. Going to have to do it coming out of this virus. And finally, you need to be able to discern. How do you say discern po polsku? To see what's there. What's the word po polsku?
To discover, odkryć, zrozumieć, odkryć.
So it's more than just understanding, it's seeing it for what it is, right? You need to discern, what is it time for now? Is it time for command authority? Great. Is it time for command authority, or is it time for adaptive leadership? So that's the end of what I had prepared for you all. And I was just thinking we could get out of this now. I'll stop the share and we can just have a conversation.
Great, thank you, John, for that part. And I'm wondering, you know, maybe let's see if you guys have comments or questions before I jump in, because, you know, I could use John's presence 100%, but I would also be very happy to have a space for you. You can unmute yourself and share a comment or a question or anything that just pops up right now.
Yes, Magda, are you just leaning toward the computer? I'm an old Gestalt therapist. I notice everything. Justina, you warming up?
Me? John, I just, maybe it's not related, but I was just wondering, kind of, you know, with your army past and what we are doing at the moment, it feels like it's very different in terms of, you know, the command and leadership. So how do you use your past experiences in your current career?
I was also a Lutheran pastor. I'm a priest. I'm a Lutheran priest. So I've been all over the place. In my life, and that's a great question. And interestingly enough, in our leadership workshop, we help people discover what we call the shadow. Like what is a way of being that you're highly resistant to. And I'm naturally resistant to, like the Donald Trump is my shadow character, right? And so what does he have to teach me? Like where am I missing moments when I need to actually be practicing more command and control? Because I've leaned so far over in the other direction, away from command and control, that my little organization right now needs me to become a little more decisive, put a little more structure out there, just a little more plan. They want to know what the plan is. And I keep saying, well, let's get together and create the plan. And boy, so right now may be the time for me to say, okay, right full rudder, steer 180, you know, for a while. So this is how we respond to that. Did that make sense, Justina, or not? Did I respond?
Yeah, it does make sense. Thank you. John, would you be able to share the presentation? You said it's open source.
No, it's top secret. I'm sorry if I just. Absolutely. I guess I don't have your email, so I'll send it to, like Sylvia, if I send it to you, can you send it to them?
Yeah, and let's also remember that it's going to be recorded. So that recording would be available on the YouTube. So you can also.
You're welcome to use these slides any way you want. If you could keep attribution on the slide, that would be lovely. That's all.
Fantastic. Thank you, John.
There she comes. Magda's ready now.
I just want to share with my impression. Maybe it's wrong impression, but I have this impression that in Poland we just learned how to be a manager after the transformation, you know, so it's very new to be a leader in our community, because
Why I came.
yes, exactly, because you know, for example, in our political life we don't have, I think it's my opinion, the example of a leader, and
I agree.
it's hard to, you know, have someone who could you can copy, inspire, or something like that. So that's why I work with Sylvia, because she's this kind of example of leader. But I don't have in my life, in my work life, you know, this kind of example. So it's very hard to be a new leader without this. It's my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Absolutely. I came here because I saw the need so you know, vividly. Read a lot. Ask people like me and Sylvia and others, what should you read? Look at this. YouTube has got some fabulous, you know, their webinars and stuff like that. Just find excuse me, find places where you can get inspiration and keep touching back to that to those people, because it is going to take, it takes courage. Absolutely takes courage.
If I can just jump in,
Sophia.
Hi, hi there, John. Because it really, I think what Magda was saying and what you were saying, I think that in Poland historically we were conditioned to believe that managing gives better results, and it did, because it's just a very short period of time after transformation, and it was enough to manage. And sort of people were conditioned to do what worked, which was management. And I think only recently, very recently, we're faced with the situation, but we've also gotten to this phase of maturity that leadership is actually possible. Of course, on a small scale, there were some, you know, examples, but these were sort of
small pockets, yeah,
tiny. But on a society sort of level, I think for many, many years, we were just managing, and it all was okay, right? So,
when I first came here, I realized after a few interactions with clients that they were looking up to find out what to do. They were waiting to be told what to do, because they didn't want to make a mistake, and that this was through from top to bottom. Now, after 12 years, you have more millennials, and they're less inclined to look up to say, "Oh, please tell me what to do." But the middle of the organization, where the old way of being is being, they're the guardians of the old way of doing things. Quite often the C-level, they've been off to business school or they've had other experiences, and they're going, geez, we got to change something here. And the millennials are going, well, yeah, you know. And so it's the people in the middle that are holding on. And so that's where that's where the stuckness is. And so when I came here, the very first talk I gave to Orland, I talked for a little while, just like here. And I stopped and I said, pair off and talk with the person sitting next to you for a while about what I've said. And I stopped, and they were talking like crazy. And then I rang a little bell, you know, and I said, okay, I'd love to hear. And everybody had on the earphones, you know, simultaneous translation. And I said, oh, I'd love to hear from, there's 300 people in this huge center. Nobody, just like in this group, nobody said a word. And so I thought it was a translation problem, right? So I said it again, nothing. And so I'm a consultant, like when in doubt, gather data. So I said, please help me. What's happening here? Why are you not, normally people would be to me. And this woman on the front row raised her hand like this, and I went over and she said, Yannick, we're not used to having our opinion asked for. And I thought maybe it was an Orland cultural thing, which it might have been. And then another guy raised his hand over here and he said, Yannick, in a group of this size, there are not many upsides to speaking out. I almost started to cry because I realized how completely ignorant I was of because I grew up in a culture where you get points for, you know, like in an American school class, I used to pretend to know the answer sometimes. when I was in grade school, even if I didn't know the answer, you know. And here the opposite was true. And then I thought you had those years under the Nazis and the years under socialism. It's like, you know, you've had 2 or 3 generations being told, we'll tell you what to do. And if you know what's good for you, you know, like this guy said, Yannick, when we go out the door, we armor up. We put our shields up. I walked into a store the first week I was in Krakow, Polish haircut, Polish clothes. I didn't say a word. And this young millennial says to me in English, yes, sir, may I help you? Which is pretty unusual anyway, you know, customer service back in those days. And so I turned to my buddy, I said, how does she know to speak English to me? And he said, Yannick, we can spot an American walking down the street. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, notice how people your age, I was like 68, 67. He said, notice how people your age walk down the street. And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? So, you know, we went out of the store and I started noticing people my age, they look down, you know, you never look at some, I was a runner, like running around the Boyne, you know, and in the morning I'm running and the snow is crunching on my feet. Here comes another runner. And I would go, dzień dobry. And they go, you know, what does he want? And I'm going, man, this is another world here. So I really get that you guys are fighting. You're swimming upstream. Courage. Courage. Pavel, you warming up or you just?
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of courage, and compared also to other places or other communities, because we are kind of expected to know or expected to manage rather than to lead in many occasions. So also during the COVID, I think also our bosses were expecting us to know what to do, while nobody was in this or even similar situation ever before. So I think it...
Exactly. You get promoted for knowing the right answers.
Exactly.
And schools and everywhere else, this is a completely counterintuitive thing. The idea that you can be of value for not knowing the answers, but knowing how to manage a process, how to facilitate a conversation. That's a whole different thing.
Magdalena also added her comment that unfortunately the kids are still taught at school in this way, where there is just one correct answer and you are not allowed to make any mistakes.
If you have children, if you're on this call and you have children, if they're older than 7 or 8, now I'm not saying it's too late, but you got it, but begin constantly reinforcing that they are more than the grade in the upper right-hand corner of a piece of paper, that they are not their grades, that they are special no matter what their grade is. You've got to get that in there alongside of the importance of the grades. It's not that the grades are not important, but you're more than that. You got to get that started in there.
Eva is raising hand.
I wanted to share also of my experience. First of all, maybe from the comment side, I'm really emotionally touched by your presentation because, you know, I'm in the middle of the transformation of the organization. I'm struggling with leadership from different levels. But I just before our meeting, your part, I was in the part of the leadership for the middle management people, and we have discussed about the role of leaders. And we've put there to the comments from Simon Sinek that the leaders are not responsible for the results, but for the creating the environment for the development of the people who are responsible for the results. And you know, it was on the beginning silent because I asked them what are you thinking about it, and you know, I was shocked because in the first moment, as we could expect, there was any answers, but in a few seconds, they started arguing between each other. What does it mean results? And long story short, the outcome from this discussion was that people are really right now still not enough courage, that they didn't have enough courage to take this responsibility from the leaders, to take also this role and act. They are still waiting. It was the feedback from the leaders, managers, frankly, that even I would like to engage them to work together, to be a leader. They don't want to work. They are expecting only answers. And this is what I'm struggling right now from both sides. One, we would like to move our leaders to the high level, be leaders, not the managers. But on the other hand, we see also this reluctancy from the employee side, because we have to move both sides, not only leaders, but also the people.
See, you just put your finger on it. Years ago, even before all this stuff happened back in America, I learned that if you're going to change the culture of an organization, you don't send people to a training program. You have to work with intact groups. If you want to change the way a leader makes decisions, you don't just take the leader off and teach them new techniques for making decisions. You work with the leader in that group, working on real issues in real time, on real stuff. Okay, that's how you change a culture. And so you can't just, I mean, you put your finger on it. The people have to be ready to step up to responsibility. If the leader's going to start sharing empowerment, I remember talking to this bank CEO 10 years ago here in Poland, and he was saying, you know, can you do a training program for us on empowerment? And I said, yeah, I could, but I would never propose that. It'd be like a $5 million project, you know, like why not? It's 10,000 people. And he said, really? Why? He was shocked because he thought I was there to sell a training program. And I said, no, I said, you'd be wasting your money and my time and everybody else's time. I said, if people show up for something because it's in a calendar, it isn't going to do much of anything for the organization. They need to be working on real issues in real time with real people. Now you're going to start to change the culture. And he said, but the people don't want to step up. And I said, yeah, that's right. That's why you can't train the managers to do empowerment techniques. You have to do it with the people in the room and start with an experiment where the boss says, okay, here's one place where I'd like to experiment. You do experiments. How about this? And I have this paper, which I'll send you, Sylvia, on the 4 levels of empowerment. Like you don't start with you're all empowered, but here's one place where I'd like to take a small step as an experiment to see if it works. Would you all like to have that paper as well as the slides? I don't want to send it if you don't. Okay, that's 3 people. Okay, that's a groundswell. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pobozenia, Eva, Pobozenia.
But I think it's really very crucial, you know, because it's also, that really also refers to what are the results of the work we are doing, John, you know, and that's exactly what we refused to doing also in the COVID, because many of the people were saying, can you just, you know, start a resilience training online? No.
Yeah, we could, but
yeah, but it's boring and it doesn't bring the results we want. It just touches the KPIs, but it doesn't bring the change, the quality change that we want. So that's perfectly underlying it. Eitan, is it?
Eitan, he gave his thumb up. He was saying yes to that.
Okay.
Let me just say one thing, because it's 11:08,
exactly.
and I know you guys have
I said
things to.
I raised my finger to say yes. I'm one of those that interested by your paper. And
okay, thanks.
And as I am speaking already, I want to tell you that I am very inspired by your talk and by the way you flow in the matter. Thank you very much for this occasion.
Thank you, Eitan. Let me just say one thing to all of you before we go. If this COVID-19 crisis isn't enough, I'm thinking, Eva, you know, if it isn't enough to shock people into the realization that what we've been doing isn't working, and if it isn't enough to provide a completely, loose opportunity to change things before they come down and get locked in again, and I don't know what will. I mean, somebody at the top has got, and look, you have a circle of influence, right? Even if it's just you and 3 or 4 people or your team, do this with your team. Do what I'm talking about just with your team. Work in your circle of influence. You know, see what happens. Sylvia, no, thank you so much. What a lovely opportunity. And when I was a pastor, when I was a preacher, I used to preach, you know, every Sunday. And I used to say, like, if you heat your house with wood burning in a furnace, you warm yourself 3 times. When you chop the wood, when you burn the wood, and when you haul away the ashes. And I used to say that when I prepared a sermon to speak to the congregation, I was warmed, my heart was warmed 3 times. When I prepared the sermon, I could stop. Like when I did my slides for you guys, that was a powerful experience to me because I discovered so many cool things. Secondly, I get to talk with you about it now. And now something else, more stuff comes up. I get warmed again. And the third time, when I think about it afterward or talk about it with some colleagues, I'll probably play this tape, if it's okay, Sylvia, with a couple of my colleagues.
Absolutely.
And say, look at what happened here. So I've been warmed by this already, by the preparation and by sharing it with you. So I can't wait for the third time. Thank you so much for this invitation. And I hope it's helpful to you all.
And I definitely encourage you to catch up with John on LinkedIn. So let's stay, you know, in very direct connections and relationships, right? So I'm going to send the presentation to everybody of you, but also, you know, take your actions, yeah, and find John at LinkedIn and connect with him, relate to him, invite him wherever you want and feel like it's really super needed. And as you mentioned, yeah.
We did our first online leadership development intensive a few weeks ago as an experiment. It worked. I mean, we were surprised. Normally you get 12 people in a room, you have all this togetherness and everything. And this was 2 days and then 5 days off. It was a Monday and Tuesday, 5 days off, and then another Monday and Tuesday. So people had 5 days in between to practice, and it was really powerful. So if that's something you want to look into, just, connect with me. And love your background, Eitan.
Yeah, that's exactly what is happening. I think that even if we're online and virtually connected, because of the energy and the feel that we share, we really connect. So I'm very grateful for having you, Janek. and I'm really, you know, when I started those Thursdays meetings, I didn't know what's gonna happen and how we're gonna proceed, and I just started doing it, and I'm so happy that you are guys together, you know. And let's open anything that you can do in your circles of influence, and at the end, let's just unmute ourselves and take together one breath, and we inhale the air and we exhale together with a sound, you know. So let's first unmute and then take the air together, inhale and exhale with the sound. Sending blessings to everybody here. You know, bless you all, and let's stay connected. My heart is really warming and I'm very, very touched. Thank you so much for it. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.